Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of the Scrimshaw Show. My name's Evan Scrimshaw. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. I know episodes have been a little spotty in recent times. It's been hard for me to find the time to talk as opposed to writing. If you want to read my writing, scrimshawunscripted.substack.com for my general politics thoughts. The lines for political betting every week, and also some sports content because they're letting me do that now, which is incredible. Love those guys. Buy my book Salvation in the Storm, and follow me on Twitter at Scrimshaw. Like and subscribe to this YouTube channel if that's where you are listening to this. It's not going to be a full-length episode today, partially because I'm recording two different things tonight, the second of which will come out soon. That said, I have a lot of thoughts about the Canadian Conservatives and the Canadian media, and I wrote columns about them. I've actually written two columns about the Conservatives being, useless in the last 8 days, but I don't know. I want to rant about it, so I'm using my platform to do that because that's the thing I can do. Okay. The Canadian Conservative Party is like borderline getting really close to being traitors to this country. And I don't mean that in a sense of we should ban them. I don't mean this in a sense that there should be any formal sanction, because that would be to treat the Conservatives the way that I'm accusing them of treating this country. But the Conservative Party of Canada is getting to a point where I'm genuinely wondering if they love this country anymore. Because one of the things about patriotism is I have a very distant relationship to the concept of it, right? Like, I'm a patriotic Canadian most of the time, but my patriotism is not just in the fact that I was born here. It is based on the fact that I believe this country to be good. I believe this country to be great, which is why when I see the Canadian men's national soccer team make the first World Cup of my life, and the first one since 1986, yes, I'm proud that Canada did a thing. I'm also proud of the fact that there's a whole load of, let's just be very clear here, non-white dual citizens who have chosen this country, who have chosen to play for this country because of the love that this country has afforded them, right? It is not, I do not love the Canadian national team's quite substantial blackness in spite of that fact. I love it. I love the team in some ways because of it, because of what it means, because of what it means to be a Canadian, what it means, what it says about the fact that we as a country have made, to pick the most obvious example, Alphonso Davies, as proud, if not fucking prouder than I am, to be Canadian, someone who was not born here and someone who this country gave a life to. And so I have this complicated relationship to Canadian patriotism and Canadian nationalism. I think also it's my inherent Scottishness and Irishness. If anyone's ever seen a photo of me circulating, that I've posted or whatever, I am ginger as fuck, I think is a fair way to put it. And so my relationships to the concept of nationalism are also defined a lot by my heritage's relationship to the British Empire. And so it's all a very complicated thing. But I'm generally not a very patriotic human being, in the sense that I'm proud to be Canadian, but I don't talk about patriotism a lot. I don't talk about betrayal of patriotism a lot. Because I generally think that most Canadians are good, and I think that generally most people are arguing for what's best for Canada, and just because we disagree on what is best doesn't mean you're not a patriot. To be patriotic is not to agree with me on what is best for Canada. It is that you are advocating for what you believe is best for Canada. And the problem is that I no longer believe that's true about the Conservative Party. Or at the very least, I'm getting to a place where I'm not sure if I believe that anymore. The Conservative Party of Canada, multiple Conservative MPs this week, Justin Trudeau a dictator. I'm almost laughing because it's just so absurd. This is a man who willingly gave up power in the last election and who the main conservative complaint was, we are having an election, we don't have to. Dictators never give the electorate another chance. The history of dictators is that once you give it up, once they get into power, they're never giving it up willingly, right? Like, Hitler never went to another election. Stalin never went to an election period. Now, or any of the successor CCP leaders never went to an election. All right? Dictatorship is a very specific word. And words have very specific meanings, right? Dictatorship, coalitions, these things have meaning. And at some point, if the conservatives are going to continue to lie, are going to continue to insist that words do not mean what they are supposed to mean, then I don't know what we can do as a country. I wrote this in my Scrimshaw Unscripted column, but I want to read it because it's, I think, one of the best things I've ever written, as arrogant as that sentence is to say out loud. The formal name of the opposition leader in Canada is Leader of Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition. Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition. Opposition in this country is an act of service and an act of patriotism, an act of loyalty to country and to crown. To oppose your government in a democracy is an act of the greatest love you can have for it. To want it to be better than it has been, to want it to be better tomorrow than it was today. Canada needs a loyal opposition, and the Tories have abandoned that entire idea to have a pissing contest of escalating anti-democratic rhetoric and to go down a relevant cul-de-sac, and in doing so are failing this country when it needs it most. And I stand by every word. I stand by every word, every comma, every colon. Because at some point, this country matters. And this country matters more than whether you think Justin Trudeau is good at his job or not. I don't even always think Justin Trudeau is good at his job. Like, sometimes I do. Sometimes I think he does good things. Sometimes I call for him to resign in columns because of we, which is a thing that I think enough people have forgotten about me, / they've found me after I did that, so good thing my liberal, I'm not the kind of person to believe that the Liberals can do no wrong. I'm not the kind of person who believes that Justin Trudeau can do no wrong. And I am not the kind of person who believes that this Liberal Party is necessarily actively good for Canada. I think they're fine. I think they've done fine. But I'm also the person who, God, that would have been the day Muhammad Ali died, so that would have been June 9th, 2016, if I'm remembering correctly. So 8-ish months after Justin Trudeau took power, I was in a room and I worked on the Hill with a bunch of senior Liberals who were unironically calling themselves the Natural Governing Party. This was June 2016. A year before, we were in third. The arrogance of Liberals knows no bounds. And we need an effective loyal opposition, if nothing else, to make sure that Justin Trudeau and Chrysler Freeland feel scared. Because if they feel pressure, they'll be better at government. We need a good opposition to make our government better. It's a fact of life, and I don't like it as much as you do. But we need a good Conservative Party, because at some point they'll govern again. I don't know if it's this, it's not going to be next time. Skippy's not going to win. But at some point, the Liberals will fuck up in some way. There will be some ethical scandal too much. Some economic crisis too unavoidable. There will be something that makes the Liberal Party lose an election again. They will not govern from now until my death. Whenever, as long from now, praise be whatever spiritual being you believe in, that is. And Canada needs an opposition party that is fit for purpose for the day when that comes. And we don't have one. And it's infuriating because we deserve better. We deserve better than a party so uselessly incompetent that the brilliant solution to Canada's inflation problem is Pierre Poilievre hawking crypto, which, as Charles Adler pointed out on Twitter, is worth $20,000 less today than it was in November. So, yeah, but we're killing inflation. Yeah, brilliant job there. Brilliant job there, Pierre. Also, like, I don't even want, like, Pierre Poilievre has not thought about this clearly enough, but one of the people who are most fucked by inflation are seniors, because they're generally on fixed incomes, which rise slower than the current rise in prices. I would really like Pierre Poilievre to try and explain to a 67-year-old what Bitcoin is. Like, that's just something I really want to see, because it's not going to go well, and you're going to be fucked. And so, again, I don't understand why Poilievre thinks this is the brilliant answer to his problems. There's something fundamentally broken about the Conservative Party at this point. They don't believe liberal governments are legitimate. And if you come at it from the perspective that they are illegitimate, then everything about the way the Conservatives have acted this year, from supporting the Freedom Convoy to the fact they're going to elect Pierre Poilievre, to Dictatorgate, to the calling the coalition deal, calling a confidence supply arrangement a coalition, an anti-democratic coalition after having spent 2021 complaining about an early election, right? Like, all the incoherence is totally understandable as you come at it from one perspective, which is that liberal government in this country is not legitimate, and the only legitimate government is a conservative government. Yes, liberals said the same shit about Stephen Harper in 2008. The difference being, everyone was saying crazy shit in 2008. They went away. Harper prorogued. The liberals lost their, cojones. They lost their willingness to fight for that coalition deal. And then the liberals helped them pass 2 budgets. That minority parliament lasted another 2 years. On liberal votes. What we are seeing is a deliberate and seemingly permanent increase in the notion that some number of Canadians view liberal government as illegitimate, and conservative MPs, who really should fucking know better, are defending it because reasons. Either they're too stupid to realize what they're doing is dangerous, or they're, they know anyways and they're doing it because they think it's what they need to do to advance their careers in conservative politics. The thing is that I know that Melissa Lantsman knows better, the Tory transport critic who went on Laura Ingraham to lie about the situation that Canadian truckers were facing, but more importantly that Canadian consumers were facing, using pictures of empty shelves from Britain because of Brexit delays to try and imply that the Canadian trucker vaccine mandate bullshit was the reason why Canadians were going hungry, which they weren't. But, she knows better. We know she knows better because she went on TV for 3 years and told everyone who would listen that the Conservative Party has gone too far, has gone too fast, and they need to calm down, relax, and moderate. We know this. We know that Rachel Curran wanted Donna Ambrose to be the next leader after Andy Scheer. Which, Ambrose isn't quite the moderate that she's often painted as, having voted to reopen the abortion debate while being the Minister for Status of Women, but whatever. We'll let that one go in the sake of a, good narrative. I wrote about it in Convoy's Cranks and When You're on the Losing End. So this would have been in January. But the expectation that is asked of the Canadian majority, right? The vaccinated majority in that case was that we have to be graceful to the unvaccinated. They are our fellow citizens, and we need to be graceful to them. That we need to treat them with a grace and a dignity that they deserve on the basis of their common humanity and their common citizenship, right? Let's ignore the fact that the people who support the convoy and are unvaccinated are the same people who believe in homophobic, anti-women, anti-choice policies, right? These are the same people who support reopening the abortion debate. These are the same people who want their MPs to not ban conversion therapy, right? These are the people who support MPs who could not find it within themselves to vote for the most benign, the most milquetoast denunciation of Islamophobia. Would have been coming up on 5 years ago now. And they couldn't even do it after an Islamophobic terrorist attack. Like, I am all for denunciations of Islamophobia. I am all for denunciations of hatred in all forms, but specifically Islamophobia, because to just tack on the and every other form of racism is very close to the Jeremy Corbyn, I oppose all forms of anti-Semitism and all other forms of hatred, when very clearly he didn't hate anti-Semitism that much. But the denunciation that the Canadian Parliament voted for was not particularly controversial. It really wasn't. It was voted on, it was filed before, but voted on after, an anti-Islam, an attack on a mosque, right? Practicing members of the Islamic faith. And the majority of conservative MPs still voted against it. 91 conservative MPs voted against it. Right? We are asked endlessly to give our faith, to give our goodwill, to extend a courtesy to people who have never extended it to people like me, to women, to Muslim Canadians. We are being consistently asked to give the goodwill to people who hate us and who vote for a political party, who are radicalizing a political party full of crazy people. And frankly, I don't even blame them. I blame the media. What do you get, as I wrote on Saturday, what do you get when a German Nazi criticizes Justin Trudeau? You get a 3-day news story that doesn't point out that the Nazi is a Nazi. It's Justin Trudeau gave a speech. He gave a speech at the European Parliament. I didn't watch any of it because I don't like listening to Justin Trudeau give speeches. I don't like listening to most politicians give speeches, admittedly, but I don't find him to be a particularly great speech giver most of the time. So I didn't watch. And then I read that a couple of MEPs had some words, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Let's see who they are. And it took me considerably deep into the article to find out that one was a Croatian anti-vax nutter who accused Emmanuel Macron of killing tens of thousands of French people by making them get vaccines. And the other is a member of the Alternative for Deutschland, which, as much as the Alternative for Deutschland is just like a banger political party name, like, it really sucks that the Nazis took that name. But yeah, those are the two MEPs. Those are the people that CTV News kept uncritically reporting were critical of Justin Trudeau, as if I was supposed to give a single fuck what they thought. I know why they did it. Because people shit on Trudeau is a good headline that gets clicks. It got my click because I didn't know who they were and I was interested. And if you present these people as, just like random European MEPs, then people are going to think, oh yeah, good call. No. These are crazy people who are criticizing Justin Trudeau. The fact that Justin Trudeau is being criticized by these people makes me like Justin Trudeau more. But we don't find that out from CTV. We don't find that out until the middle of the article. We don't find this out because they're not in the news business anymore. They're in the entertainment business. But the thing about being in the entertainment business is you forgot to send out the memo. You don't get to change what you're doing and not tell us. You don't get to change the game and then just move on, right? Because if you're just passing entertainment off as news and you don't tell us that it's no longer news, then we don't get to know that we shouldn't take what you're saying seriously. And we shouldn't. Because if this is what passes for news these days, we should never take what you have to say seriously. When I write, there was a commenter on my site, and I don't usually read the comments, but I read this one, who said that he is considering not reading my work anymore because of my use of profanity. And I get it. It's not everyone's taste. I write the way I talk the way I write, and therefore if I want to call someone a chuckle fuck, then I'll call someone a chuckle fuck. Also, at this point, me referring to Fournier as such is like a pretty well-established thing, so I guess if you weren't here for Canada, like, you missed the memo, but like, that's just the bit at this point. Like, that's just what we're doing here. But the thing about this is, like, when I write for the lines, I don't swear. When I write for the lines, I don't bother editorializing, because that's not the job for the lines. My job for the lines is to tell you who's going to win and why. Who's a good bet and why. My job isn't to tell you whether someone will be a good senator, it's to tell you whether they will be a senator or not. Right? That's the job description. That's their style guide. That's what that website does. They are a sports betting website with a politics page, and I do the politics page. Right? They are trying to make people money. They are trying to give people actionable information to make people money. So they don't give a shit what I think. They don't give a shit what you think. They don't give a shit what anybody thinks about whether an election outcome is good, bad, indifferent. It's not the job. The job is who's going to win and why. That's what I am paid to write about when I write for them. I am paid to tell you who's going to win and who's going to lose. It is a different job than the one I do when I write for myself. I'll editorialize, I'll call you a Nazi if I think you're a Nazi. I'll do whatever the fuck I want to do, because that's my site, and I get to do what I want to do. But it's a different job, right? It's a different job when I write Salvation, right? There are some things in Salvation that are deeply personal to me, right? That are things I put in the book for me, because I want to do them. Because I wanted to write a book with that scene in it, right? Or I wanted to infuse that character with that moment. And some of them are very important. Some of them are things that are like very key and work in the story, and the story wouldn't be the same without them. And some of them are shit I wanted to do. But they're small choices. They are small choices up and down the lineup of a book, of an article, of a series of articles, of a month's worth of coverage, right? We are all... I don't know how to put this. Like, I honestly don't even know how to communicate this properly. You have to know what the job you're doing when you do something is, right? You have to know whether a choice you're making is a choice you're making for yourself or a choice you're making for other people, right? You have to know the job description of the thing that you're writing for, right? If I am writing for myself, right? If I'm writing about Canada where everyone knows who all the people are, I don't have a lot of work to do, right? I can just get into, fuck Doug Ford. I don't have to explain who Doug Ford is and why he sucks. If and when I write an Ontario election preview for the lines, if the good people at Predict It, offer a market on it, no idea if they will. If anyone at Predict It's listening, please do. But when I write that preview, I'm going to have to explain who all the people are, because all the people who read my lines columns are Americans. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. And so they're not going to know who the people are. Well, I just wrote a conservative leadership preview, which was basically half me just explaining who the people were. That's the job. It's a different job depending on what you're doing. And the problem for the Canadian media is, it's drives me up a fucking wall every time I think about it. But the thing about the Canadian media is they are completely brain dead. They do not seem to understand what the mission is, right? Whether it's the CBC reporter who's getting paid by the taxpayers and is on the taxpayer's dime in whatever foreign capital, whatever European capital they were, when he asked Jolie and Freeland, do you think it's acceptable, given all the domestic crises, for the Prime Minister to be here on the taxpayer's dime? Who cares? Like the fact that you think that's an acceptable question is stupid enough. The fact that you think it's an acceptable question when you also get paid by the taxpayer is an even stupider one. And the thing I keep coming back to is either the Canadian media is less clear-eyed about the influence of their choices, the choices that they make that we never get to scrutinize, that we never get to challenge, that are never talked about publicly, right? Who gets what coverage, what stories get done, which ones don't, who gets put at the top of a news broadcast, and who gets stunted to, let's say in an hour of the National, right? You have to make choices. You have a certain number of slots, you have a certain number of ad breaks, and you have to decide what goes where. That's a choice, right? You lead what you lead with, what you put where, because no one watches the news to the end. And the people who do already know it, right? What you put where matters. How you do this job matters. And if the Canadian media is either less clear-eyed about this than a dude with a Substack, or they're intentionally skewing their coverage to the right by protecting Jean Charest because they think he has a better chance of beating Trudeau, by uncritically reporting the words of these crank MEPs as if they mean fuck all. And at some point, we all have to realize the Canadian media is killing themselves. And frankly, they're killing the idea that Canada can have a common, intelligent conversation about facts. Because at some point, if the Canadian media keeps failing us, we aren't going to be able to agree what those fucking facts are anymore. And it is a fucking disgrace. Okay. There's no fun transition to an outro from it. The Canadian media is a fucking disgrace. But if you like this episode of the show, just share it on social media, please. Like this video on YouTube. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're not already subscribed. Follow me on Twitter at @eScrimshaw. Follow my writing at scrimshawunscripted.substack.com. Buy Salvation in the Storm. It's no longer my pinned tweet. Just search Salvation. You can just search Salvation in the Storm in Amazon. You can search my tweets. It's really not that hard to find. Have a great Friday. Thank you for listening to the show. And may everyone have a great next week as well.